Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. This time we'll take a look at legendary Leif and his banner. For once I have to say, this is a nice change of pace. A legendary hero that has been awaited for the better part of 2 years, I think, at this point. Actually got in the game and is not all bad. Looking at you, Roy. What have they done to you, Jesus? So, to put it simply, this is a pref brave bow, 9 might, minus 5 speed as per usual. Neuron Zeal is basically Gale Force inflicting a penalty on you afterward, but it's also only 3 cooldown, which makes it very easy to proc. The restriction is also easy to get to completely remove. I believe skills such as Arch Command Plus, as well as Sacrifice, and more importantly Restore Plus can all remove this, which is quite good. It allows Leif to move back. Hell, even with the penalties, there are ways to make use of it as a more or less 3 movement options, but that's something that we'll cover in the build section. It's overall a really good special and gives Leif a very needed niche. Honestly, as bowcalves tend to always be compared to Bravelyn, this is probably the one time where I won't be comparing him to Bravelyn, because frankly what he's doing is something Bravelyn can't do. Then we have Attack Rest Push 4, which is not bad. I say it's not bad because Attack Death Push 4 would be a lot more welcomed. A lot of unit can make more use of that skill over something like, say, Attack Risk Push. The res is just kind of... res is a lot less valuable than defense, because defense can actually provide you bulk against, say, dragons if you're a ranged unit, as well as physical units. So typically, even if you're a mage unit with a good chunk of res, you don't really want to run Attack Risk Push, you'd rather run Attack Death Push, because dragons and melee units are far more commons than mages. That's just the fact of the matter. So obviously Attack Risk Push is a bit awkward. Still, it's a good option for Leif, who doesn't really care at the end of the day. He doesn't really care about whether you get defense or res, because his stats are fairly even. So, alright. And then the Estus Flask, which, I mean, it has its niche. Except no one should use that, but it has its niche, I guess. And then Death Smoke, which is actually quite welcome, because a variety of set you can run on him does require Death Smoke to actually function fairly decently. As far as comparisons are concerned, there's really only one unit to compare, and that's Ellie Roy, which honestly, now that I think about it, it took them, what, 20 months? Around 20 months to repeat this stat line as if it was a bad one, which was not really the case. Honestly, Brave Roy is very comparable to Reinhardt, but just a more physical one. That said, Leif takes that to an extreme, which, I mean, if people can't tell that he's a good unit, I don't know what will tell them a good unit is good. Still, if you compare the two one to one another, you can realize 2 things. First off, Gen 4 is quite high in terms of BST compared to Gen 1, and second is the fact that he has more attack, more speed, more HP, more def, but 3 less res, which don't matter, because at the end of the day, he basically has more or less the same bulk as far as mixed bulk is concerned, and then if you consider HP on top of it, 6 HP is quite a massive difference. So, yeah. Moving on to builds. Some of them will be conventional and other ones are not going to be conventional. So, I'll start with the right one because that's the easiest one to consider. Bond skills. I know already how people feels about bond skills, and probably for cavalry units, I'm part of the people that consider it to be quite bad on most of them. However, this is considering Leif in a more mixed setup. This would be used in a non-cavalry focused set. In other words, you'd be using him with units like, say, tanks. Brave Lane, for example, is a good example. Which allows you to just dunk on anything that's range more or less, unless there's units such as Ophelia. Attack Res Bond is also really good, Attack Res Bond 4, because you cannot nerf his attack. Chill attack will be completely ignored, because Attack Res Bond gets rid of all debuffs concerning attack or res, which makes him also a bit more consistent for, you know, tanking mages. Attack Res Bond and Attack Def Bond essentially pushes his bulk to 44 def and 44 res, not to mention gives him 12 attack. That's quite good. And low attack def also means that the enemy cannot use attack buff against him, unless, you know, AoEs, because AoEs takes part before combat, which means low attack def never has a chance to even proc. So you'd be sitting at 47 def, 47 res, because the enemy lose 3 attack, and if you're considering fighting someone with attack tactic buffs on, or anything very similar, you essentially have 53 def and res against them, because their attack buff is nullified. Yeah, that is tanky, and on top of that, you're looking at 73 attack. This set can also be run with Moonbow instead, or even better actually, Ignis. The reason why I say Ignis is because then you can just run Brave Lucina. Brave Lucina will also push your stats a bit further, pushing it to basically 50 def, 50 res, 47 def for the Ignis proc itself. Meaning you get about, I believe, 38 damage on Ignis. So you take the hit, that's 2 charge, you hit back, that's 2 charge, you hit back, that's Ignis. Brave Lucina is a fantastic partner as a result. Not to mention the 3 attack that she gives, the 3 def that they lose, the fact they can't run def buffs, and the fact that you have 7 attack on the A slots, 5 attack on the seal slot. Well, to put it simply, this essentially means quite a bit. 12 attack, 15 attack with Lucina, 3 attack from the B skill, that's 79 attack. You're looking at 79 attack with a Brave Bow on enemy phase that you cannot nerf the attack of, that you cannot increase your defense to defend against, that you cannot increase your attack to make sure you may kill him. Yeah, this is nasty. And again, with Ignis, with Brave Lucina, you proc Ignis every fight because you take the hit back, and then proc. And if you're dealing with Guard, and if you're really afraid of Guard, you can run Ruptured Sky, Glimmer, Moonbow. Any such skills will be instantly procced, regardless of it or not. If all you need is that extra push against armored unit, then this might be a worthy consideration, despite having Brave Lucina. The set on the left. Okay, 2 things before I start, or 1 thing before I start, is the simple fact that, oh, and also the other set, Death Smoke, quite good. 86 attack if the enemy's debuff, so you can just like jump in the enemy side as long as you can have a unit next to you, which can be a bit awkward, but you know. But yeah, for the other unit, if you are not plus 10, obviously attack plus will not do. You'll want speed plus instead. The speed you see on this unit right now, unmerged, speed plus, is the same. That means this set is very usable even on an unmerged Leif. Now, I know already what a few people will say. Double Brazen, Jay, why are you doing this? You keep telling us that relying on nothing but Brazen is a bad idea. Yes, I do. However, here's the difference. Meisterbogen has an extra effect if you're the one in control. So obviously this set does not really work on AR defense if you're using Leif as a defense unit. However, if you're in control, it has an impact effect on the weapon. Meaning your enemy cannot hit you twice. Meaning speed is not exactly an issue from the get-go. Meaning it's very easy to go and attack something that hits you back and then just make full use of it with Brazens. At the end of the day, if you take 11 damage, you're in Brazen range. Another thing about this set is, well, I think everyone knows about Brave Ike at this point. You'd be a dumbass not to. This set with Luna, fighting a plus 10 Brave Ike with plus 6 across the board buffed and Brave Lucina support, well, Leif kills him with Luna. It's exactly the right amount of HP though, so obviously Flowers can screw that up a little. However, I was not considering a Leif with Flowers either, so this may or may not make a difference. Either way, that's insane for a physical unit to butcher Brave Ike in one round, despite 6 across the board and 3 from Brave Lucina. Low speed def cancels the def buff on Brave Ike, which is quite good, and the speed debuff is also quite good at making him consistent at quadding his foes. So yeah, another thing is if you're using Neuron Zeal, the other thing worth of consideration is obviously you don't have Luna, but Luna only increases your damage by 4 in the fight. Yeah. Yeah, 4 damage. Because you basically delete 20 of Ike's def, or a bit less, I think. And yeah, 20, and then 80% of the 20 extra damage is 4, so that's all the damage you get. If you have Neuron Zeal, you can attack a unit next to Ike, kill it, proc Def Smoke, and then... oh, look at that. Brave Ike takes at least 1 extra damage per hit. He still dies. And if you kill, say, oh, Brave Lucina in the back, and then come back to kill Brave Ike... well, Brave Ike loses buffs. That's quite good. So yeah, that's quite insane. But another thing is the fact that with Attack Plus, you get 9 attack from Brazen attack speed, 7 attack from Brazen attack speed, 3. So that's 16 right there. You're at 77 attack, and you reduce the enemy's def by 3. So essentially, you're at 80 attack. This is without Flowers. 80 attack. What about the speed then? 27 plus 10, 37 plus 7, 44 plus 3 from low speed, def, 47. You're looking at a unit with 80 attack and 47 speed. That if, you know, Neuron Zeal procs, essentially can just jump up to 87 attack because the enemy loses 7 def. And like I said, his weapon has an impact skill in it. So to put it simply, you fight someone with DC, and if they have something as low as 50 attack, you are in range. Another thing to note is that 61 attack is still no slouch, so it might be a bit hard to hit Brazen, but at the same time it's kind of hard to fail to kill. And in a lot of cases, even if you're just... You can just face tank a mage. Okay? You can just face tank a mage and be fine, because say you're taking 30 damage, well, that's fine. They never will have a chance of hitting you a second time, because it's really hard for a mage. First off, that would be a 70 attack mage, or around that, which that's already rare. So unless they have like instant proc special, it's really hard for Leif to die. But after you take the hit, you basically hit back twice with 61 attack, or rather 64 because of low speed def. It's really rare that a mage that has 70 attack can also face tank 64 attack. Just saying. Another thing to note is Neuron Zeal is really good with Brazens, because let's put it this way. You hit twice, you get hit back. How many charge did you get? 3. How much charge do you need for Neuron Zeal? 3. Oh fuck. Yeah, after that you are now in Brazen range, and whatever the heck you failed to kill is dead. There's no way it's going to be able to tank you at that point. The one thing to note though is that quick repose can be a bit dangerous. After all, at the end of the day, if they have an unbuffed speed stat of 35 or higher, they can double you through quick repose, but 35 speed is still hard to get. And even unmerged, with speed plus instead, you are still at 72 attack at this set's peak. That is insane. So yeah, quite an insane set. As for pivot instead of repo, I think most people already guessed, but this is a way to circumvent Neuron Zeal's drawback. Because that way, you can just take a unit that might be a tank and just jump over it. That's 3 movement essentially, because you moved 1, you jumped over the character, that's 2, and you get behind it, 3. That's kind of good. It's kind of a way to actually not need dancers for the repo dance thing, which is quite good. It's a bit awkward though if you don't have a good tank, like say Brave Ike, but it's still a fantastic option nonetheless. Nonetheless, even. Moving on to the second page of set. Obviously the set on the left is very simple. The set on the left is just a Desperation set version of what I just posted. So it's basically more or less the same. Again, that's just what it is. Since you don't have low speed def, however, you will need a speed boon for this one. So on lower merges, it can be a bit iffy. That said, it's still 44 speed unmerged. So quite solid. Now the set on the right is also quite simple. It's a brash desperation brash desperation set. I used attack risk push because this is available on both phases. However, if you feel like it's a bit awkward for you because of the way desperation works, you can just decide to use a Brazen skill instead. One of the reasons I went for attack risk push, however, is just because that works from the start. Just in case you feel a bit awkward using, a push skill with desperation and obviously brash assault, which requires you to be under 50% health. Also, having more bulk may make it a bit more awkward to reach the below 50% health, which can be a problem. Still, while I do say this, it is a solid option nonetheless. After all, I just realized that the boon is bad. If you're running this set, obviously you want attack plus, not speed plus. I'm a dumbass. Sorry about that. But yes, Brash Desperation is a way to go around the fact that his speed is a bit not great. So there is that. And it gives him an extra options if you're on low merges, because on low merges having enough speed requires something like Brazen Attack Speed 4, which is not exactly available. Brazen Attack Speed 3 can still be used, but at that point you're at 41 speed, which can be very awkward unless you run low speed def. So yeah, it's still worth mentioning. Again, I don't think I have to explain Pivot or Death Smoke. It's very self-explanatory. And moving to the last sets, the close counter sets. In case you don't know, this works really well. The Vantage set with Luna. That set is obviously in the mind of not having Brave Lucina. Okay? Because Brave Lucina won't be there to charge you up. The set on the right is with Brave Lucina in mind. Okay? I'm saying this because the set on the left doesn't require Brave Lucina, and that's why I went with Luna, which is a 3 cooldown, meaning that every 2 fight you will proc Luna if needed. It's also worth noting that regardless if you're on player or enemy phase, you will do just fine. And also Brazen Attack Res synergize quite well with Vantage. So, there's that. And since you're going to take hit, getting in Vantage is not really difficult. Again, too, you're at 61 attack at the very least, and yeah, that's overall fairly solid. Another idea is to also do something similar than what I did at the start with the double bond set. You can just decide to run attack res bond with lull attack def, that way it works at all HP and you can be still fairly bulky to some extent. It's a bit iffy, not gonna lie, but it's also an option you can run. The set on the right is obviously relying on Brave Lucina. Vantage proc, you hit back, then you proc Moonbow. Every time. Moonbow can just do that extra bit of damage that you need, and for some reason the set on at the most right has Luna again, even though that should be Moonbow. I had to redo that screenshot, so that's probably why I screwed up there. Sorry about that. Still, you get the idea. Once you take some damage, you're at 68 attack with a Brave Bow. 68 attack, say you're fighting someone with 42 defense. Just a random number out of my ass. You're already doing 26 times 2, but Moonbow will also push an extra 12 damage. That's not bad. That's 64 damage. Hard to imagine much things actually tanking you at that point. So it's overall a fairly decent set. Leif is honestly really good, and I might actually decide to make him a merge project in the future, since I actually really like Leif. For the 2 people who don't know yet, Leif is my favorite lord in the series by far. There's no one that comes even close. Well, I say that though, Dimitri, Eliwood, and Selef are all like second spot. But Leif is still my favorite just for the fact that he's kind of this nobody that doesn't have any very important lineage. In a world like Genealogy where having major holy blood decides your future, it's... To put it in perspective, if you've played Three Houses, the crest system, it's literally taken from Genealogy. Except there's no difference between major and minor crests, like there was in Genealogy. In Genealogy, legendary weapons could only be wielded by major crest wielder, and while, yes, Leif had a crest, or holy blood would be the correct term here, but I'm using crest because that's more... that's something that people can more easily understand what I'm talking about. If you had a major crest, and say, in this case, Neuron, you'd be able to use the weapon Gabolg, which is his weapon, the weapon his father uses. However, he has a minor blood in it, and I believe also a minor braggy blood, bleh. Which means he did end up having the growth rates of someone with major holy blood, since minor holy blood increases your growth by 50% overall. So having 2 of them is 100%, which is what a major holy blood gives. While he did have the growth, he cannot wield his father's weapon, nor can he wield turfing, which is, in case you don't know, the weapon Selef uses, which requires major braggy blood. The reason why he has minor braggy blood is because Ethlyn, Sigurd's sister, is married to Quan. And so she has minor braggy blood, and, you know, that's how she got the blood. His sister is the one with the major holy blood, and ironically enough, she's not the main focus of anything in genealogy. She's an interesting character and I really quite like her, but it's quite nice to see that it's actually Leif that gets the spotlight. Overall, however, she is actually able to use Gable and actually uses the weapon. So, the fact that Leif is this kind of nobody with no special power, no available, special weapon or anything of the sort, makes him a lot more interesting to me because at the end of the day he has nothing to really rely on. He's kind of driven part by vengeance and part by also just restoring his own kingdom, which has fell when he was younger, when he was still just a kid. And those reasons are very human. Leif is the most human of all lords, and honestly the human aspect of him is the same reason why I love Dimitri, Seliph, and Eliwood so much. They are very human and they go through so much hardship, and Leif is just the same. Which is why I really like him. But the thing that I really like about him is just the fact that he has really nothing to his name. Thrakia in general is a weird game. It's a game where you don't have any financial support by any kind of kingdom at all. You're just this nobody at the end of an army, or rather 3 people at the start, that just has to do with with the hand that is dealt to you, to the point where you have to literally capture your enemy, steal their weapon, and just continue with these weapons and use them in battle. And that's like the main source of weapon in Thrakia. Shops are actually very scarce and you don't really have money to buy stuff from them, which is a lot more interesting because this is the reality of war and guerrilla tactics. I don't know. I guess this is a weird tangent for people who have never heard about Thrakia, but I really love Leif. I can't put it in more words just how much I adore this character, so I'm just really glad he got a good ult. Anyway, for the banner itself, well, I'd say this banner is fairly stacked, but it also has its fair share of problems. Colorless is honestly the best that it has ever been. Alm is a great unit, Leif is a fantastic unit, Tiki is also a great unit. Special Fighter is still the reason that you're building a armored unit in the first place. If you don't use Special Fighter, they're probably not even worth your time. I'm gonna be flat out honest here. Armored units are in this weird space where if they can't use Special Fighter, they can't use anything, basically. With very, very rare exceptions. No, follow-up is also not bad. Darting Blow 4 is meh. Brazen attack speed is meh, unless you're going for 4, which is gonna be Walt. And Walt is probably coming back... I don't think soon, actually. I think it's going to be in 2, 3, or 4 months. But obviously you shouldn't be summoning Brazen attack speed from you shouldn't be summoning Tiki for Brazen attack speed. Just wait for Walt if that's the case. At least if you're going for 4, but again, if you're not going for 4, typically you can just use the seal and you'll be just fine. So Colorless is a fantastic color. This is the best color of the banner by far. Then the second best would probably be blue. Legendary Azura goes... I don't think I have to explain why Azura is good. Obviously, Blue Dual Flyer is quite underwhelming. And honestly, probably one of the worst flyer skills, because only Azura and Ninian can really use it. Obviously, I'm talking about Bridal Ninian. But other than that, it is what it is. She's still a fantastic unit either way. Legendary Lucina is also quite good, and honestly is only getting better with time, it feels like. Honestly, she's been my target, but considering I got the 14.5% on the banner only to get pity broke by Azura, and then 10% to get pity broke by Tiki, I'd say this banner was not great to me. As is basically every banners nowadays. Anyway, Marisa is okay. Flashing Carrot is actually a really good weapon for a lot of Lance units. Obviously, Conrad is one of them. If you're going to make him a merge project, I'd say you probably want to summon blue in general, because regardless of what you pull, you're going to get something good then. Flashing Carrot is really good on Conrad, and Legendary Lucina, Legendary Azura are both great units. This is also the last month, at least for a long time, I feel like, that Azura and Lucina will be on the same banner, so better, you know, make use of it while you can. Then the third best color would probably be red, but not by much. Ryoma is, well, let's not mince word here, outclassed entirely. There's nothing that he can do better than Katria. Katria is more attack, the same HP, about the same def, more res, less speed, but it doesn't even matter. 39 speed is way too much anyway. So, it's really hard for me to say, like, yeah, summon for Ryoma. However, this version of Ike is one of the few armored units that actually is not bad. The only issue is probably res, but it's actually salvageable somewhat. Res Plus with Warding Stance, for example, gives you 28 res, which is decent, if anything. Or you can just run Attack Res Bond instead, and then have 27 res. And then if you have buff, that can go up to 34 or 33 res respectively, and if you reuse Heart's Blade, which is a fantastic weapon, that goes up to 37 res, or 36 res. And if you refine it to res, you can push that to 40 plus res. Yeah. 22 res with res plus. Hard Blade refined to res, that's 26. Hard Blade itself, 29. Buff, 35. Attack res bond, that's 40 res. Yeah, it's salvageable. Not to mention your def is also going to be like 44 def. 44 def with 40 res. Kinda hard to take down already. On top of 54 attack, 38 speed. And with buff that goes up to, actually, 41 speed. I forget always to add Heart's Blade plus 3 sometimes. Sorry about that. So, to put it simply, with buffs you are already at 47 speed with Heart's Blade. That's insane, that's already the best number you can hit, and or that's already the number you should hit, and then the weapon pushes his attack to 60 with an attack buff. 60, 47 offensively with, well, with attack res bond, that's 65 attack, 47 speed, with 44 def and 40 res. I'd say that's pretty good. That's an unmerged Res Plus Ike. Obviously this is without considering a Bane, but you know, there's no point in me suggesting what Bane you should go for, because at the end of the day, you get what you're dealt with, and if you get a second Res Plus, you can just merge them together. But yeah, Ike, obviously a very fantastic unit. Next up, a unit that's not so lucky, Palla. Palla is the textbook example of something that should not be colored. Palla is a product of her time because she was literally made with the idea of killing Surtur and nothing else. Her weapon is literally an armor killer that negates Wary Fighter if combat triangle advantage happens. Wow, Surtur is green. Gee whiz, I wonder what she's good for. It's depressing because her stat line is so good, and with attack plus you can make quite a few things work out, if she wasn't red, because the fact that she's red just means use Soph. Soph is just better. Even at using your dagger, because at the end of the day, Wary Fighter don't matter if you one-shot. Which is kind of the goal of an effective weapon anyway. Like, let me put it this way, yeah? 41 attack. The weapon is 12 might, so that's 53 attack. Had an attack buff, that's 59 attack. Had Death Blow 4, that's 67 attack. Had Sturdy Blow 2, that's 71 attack. 71 attack with the effective multiplier, that's 106 attack. Oh, what's that? The enemy has like 50 def, he still takes 56 damage and dies. Wow. Hey, Surtur, you're still dead. I think you get where I'm coming from at this point, but, you know. The fact that she has a color does not matter at the end of the day. Even unmerged, she would still kill a plus 10 Surtur with attack plus. Which is sad, because 37, 34 is a very good offensive stat line. In fact, it's one of the best out there. Especially with a super boon in attack, because you don't need any boon in speed anyway. Yet this is what they did with it. Not to mention, Palla is known to have like even def res, but for some reason they just stripped her away from all her def. She should have 23 def res, that would actually reflect her base variant. No one's angry at the fact that she has even def and res. Jesus, that's a boon for her, if anything. It's such a shame, because Palla is very close to be good. Even now, like, even with that def, that's not even a problem. You can just run Sturdy Impact. And look at that, you have almost equal def and res. What? The stat line is basically fixed retroactively? Yeah. And if anything, you can just use bonds as well. Like Attack Def Bond 4. Or just like Attack Def Bond 3 with Aerobatics and Sturdy Impact. But the fact that she's red is the main problem here. Pegasus Carrot is good to inherit in general, because armor killer daggers are not really a thing. Yes, I am aware of Oshiden Festival Ryoma and his dagger. His dagger, however, means you can't run Desperation. This dagger can run Desperation, so it's obviously better overall. Obviously, there's Wary Fighter that can be a problem, but the thing is, you don't use Desperation for armored units. Like I said, Soph will more often than not kill the armored units in one hit with this dagger at plus 10. No debate. Okay? Desperation is there for the non-armored units. The units that your speed will actually matter against. The units that, you know, you're effective against won't be able to one-shot because they're not weak to it. So Pegasus Carrot is overall better, despite the fact that it's basically a glorified armor smasher for ranged units. And nothing else. That's kinda sad, but it is what it is. Still, Pegasus Carrot, like I said, is really good on Soph. Or Kagero, if you want to go with the Sting Shuriken wave, despite the fact that this should have been our pref, but isn't, for whatever reason. And green is probably the worst, but even though I say it's the worst, it's actually quite good. It's just that, just like blue, Ranulf is kind of the Marissa of that bunch, except it's worse because the fodder he has is just, hey, do you want to score like Alpha Merge more on one unit if you pull me? Well, I have Rally Attack Def Plus, and that's like the basically all he has going for himself. If you're going to use him as a buffer, just don't. Use Kaden. Kaden can give 6 across the board instead of 3 attack and def. It's just better. There's no reason to use Ranulf in general, which is kind of a shame, because Ranulf is actually a fan favorite. But oh well. Kind of funny though that if you compare him to Felicia, they basically have almost the same HP, same attack, same speed. He has more def, and then you have the rest that's just, nope. I'm out of here. Felicia is actually a really good unit. Honestly, her weapon is very slept on. It's just the problem is that she's a seasonal unit. And the other issue is that Amelia exists. Amelia is a far more available unit, especially since weekly banner seems to just, you know, reset now. If you want to have something with Felicia's playstyle, don't use Felicia and instead use Amelia. Because Amelia has a weapon with a cooldown -1, and on top of it, it gives 5 speed, 5 def, which overall means that she'll have way more def than Felicia, more speed, more attack. Cooldown -1 with Special Fighter means that you can proc Aether every fight. I think she also has more HP, but like way less res. But even her res is not that bad. It's actually very workable, and therefore Felicia doesn't really have a whole lot. Her pref is all that Felicia is the only reason Felicia is all decent, which allows you to, I believe, remove some attack speed or add attack speed to your own. It's been a while. Overall, she's decent. It's just Amelia is overall cheaper and does more or less the same job. Felicia, however, does have ploys to her name, but for armored units, where your C skill tends to be very clustered in the first part because of Armor March, which is just a band-aid on a gaping wound at this point, well, it's kind of hard for me to just say, yeah, her ploy is a huge boon for her. And then you have Hector, which is probably the best Hector that we have even to this day, which is kind of ironic to say at this point. He's okay. He's mostly used for arena scoring, of course, because 175 BST and the fact that he is a fire hero. He's overall solid, just nothing really to write home about. As is basically every Hector at this point, none of them really aged too well. It's just how it is, I suppose. But yeah, overall I'd say Colorless is very much a must summon, honestly. If you don't have Alm or Leif, at least summon until you get one of the two. Honestly, you don't lose anything at that point. Blue is also not bad. If you want Azura, this is the last month I would say would have good chance of being all decent. For a while, at least as far as banners goes with her. Obviously, Valentine Ike is also a beast of a unit, so if you like Ike and you want to actually use him, this is a good option to go for. And other than that, there's not many standouts. Felicia is okay also, like I said before. Just a bit iffy overall, because Amelia exists. But yeah, not much else to say about this. Overall, this is actually my favorite Lord getting the treatment he deserves, and I couldn't be happier for it. Though I sure would like to be treated the same way when I'm summoning at this point. Jesus Christ, I would like to catch a break for a once. Still, like I said, very good, very competent unit. And yeah. That's all I had to say about the banner, so I suppose that's just all I have to say. I'll be seeing you all on Discord, or either this Saturday or Sunday for the stream, whichever the poll decides. Have a good night, y'all.